Self-worth is such an important concept in our lives. And what is self-worth? So self-worth is this idea of how we see ourselves. Another word for self-worth is self-esteem, our sense of confidence, our sense of faith within ourselves. How do we hold ourselves up when we're in a crowd, when we're at work, when we're on our own? How much value do we give ourselves? And self-worth can be determined by so many different things. The environment that we're in has a huge impact on self-worth. Imagine if we were in a very toxic environment, toxic work environment or toxic friend circle. That can end up influencing us in a really negative way, the place we kind of hang around with. Human beings have this herd mentality or like tribal mentality. We tend to follow the crowd. It's just a normal thing, there's nothing wrong with it. Imagine you're going to the airport and you're waiting for your flight. Naturally a queue will form and you just join the end of it. You don't actually necessarily know even if it's your queue for your flight, but we just tend to have that. The idea of queuing is quite a herd mentality thing. Again, it's normal. So if you hang around with people that are very negative or the environment's very negative, people speak badly of other people and perhaps even of themselves, you end up falling into that pattern. And it's not a very good pattern to be in. And in the same way, if you hang around with people that are a little bit more optimistic or upbeat or just think better of themselves, because of the herd mentality, we end up taking on some of those values as well. Self-worth can be influenced by the food we eat and what we drink, by what we watch on TV. All of these things influence us. Anything really that we take in through our senses affect our sense of self, our sense of worth, our sense of faith. However, I feel one of the biggest factors for self-worth, what determines our self-worth, is how we speak to ourselves. The language that we use to communicate to ourselves. Now, what does that mean exactly? Now, if you think about it, we're always talking to ourselves. Inside of our heads, there's always a conversation going on. Imagine you're anxious about something, or you're a bit nervous. That anxiety comes through the voice inside of our heads that are constantly speaking. Imagine you're scared of an interview. You might have this voice inside of your head saying you always fail at interviews, or you're not very good at interviews, or it's going to be very difficult. That voice ends up bringing down your sense of self-worth. And it's not difficult to change that voice, change that inner dialogue. We need to start speaking to ourselves in a more self-affirming way, in a way that is more, you're going to be, if it's the interview scenario, you're going to be amazing at the interview. You bring into your mind scenarios where you have been successful and you talk about that to yourself. And that can be quite empowering. So the way we speak to ourselves has a huge impact on our sense of self-worth, on our sense of self-esteem and our faith in ourselves. So for example, if you're, let's say, going to, something that you're anxious about or something that you're fearful of, or just day to day. So a classic example is maybe you're clumsy and you're running to work and you accidentally slip or you fall or you trip on the ground. Now listen to the dialogue, because you're quite anxious already, maybe you're running late for work. You listen to the dialogue that you're saying to yourself. Oh, you're always clumsy, or you always muck up, you always screw up. Why didn't I look at where I was going? All of these things reaffirm this idea that I'm not worthy, that I am clumsy, that I am perhaps no good. And it breaks down our sense of self-worth, our sense of self-confidence, our sense of faith in ourselves. I know you fell over, however you can change that inside of your head. You can be like, okay, it's fine, I can still get up, I can still walk, it's okay, next time I'll be a little bit more vigilant. But just doing that changes the way you approach a scenario, and therefore it changes the way you see yourself. And changing the way you see yourself is a huge aspect of changing your sense of self-esteem, your sense of self-worth. Because as much as the external factors affect us, the biggest thing that affects us is our mind, and the way we talk to ourselves, the way we see the world is affected by that.